Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I have been dealing with travel ball this weekend. We won one game and lost two games. That team we had to play twice, was pretty, I think they had been playing together for a little while. That's my 10-year-old that was playing. All right, check this out. PolySign and Link2 were at the NASDAQ, and I'm looking for the full video. I hadn't found it yet.
So our clients are institutions. PolySign is a early stage company, and we're providing infrastructure for institutions to access digital assets. We just offer custody, so we don't trade, we don't market make, we don't lend, we don't borrow.
It was clear to us that there were certain aspects of the market structure that needed improving. We felt very, very strongly that PolySign was it. We felt had the strongest technical solutions that were also regulatorily compliant, which is the other important aspect.
So that'll be a good interview to watch. And Link2 is one of my sponsors. The link will be in the top of the description. They do have PolySign on there. Now look what James Rule found today. This is I'll show you the I don't know what this website is. It's theorg.com. They've got a picture for Arthur Brito right here. And my gut tells me that this is just somebody went out and found a random picture. But look what happened when I did a Google image search. Here's my Google image search right here. This guy, Michael Del Castillo, is what came up. And he is reports on blockchain and cryptocurrencies for Forbes. Okay, he's a crypto staff writer, and I think he also writes for CoinDesk. So I feel like somebody just went out, because he looks like a writer all the way. I mean, he looks like he's been a writer his whole life. So I'm thinking that someone must have gone and just grabbed that picture and put it there, but we shall see. Now, watch this. You know, we've been talking about how we heard that the CFTC, the SEC, and all these agencies are involved in the crypto crackdown, and the CFTC's been kind of silent, but Caroline Pham has finally addressed it.
A lot in the news. A lot of it's about the SEC right now.
She's at the CFTC.
We had the settlement with Kraken, for example. Now we have just a civil complaint just been filed against Terraform Labs. What is the role of the SEC versus the CFTC? Are you feeling left out?
Oh, we're very busy, so just stay tuned. But I think it's important that in the United States, we have many different federal regulators, all of whom have their important roles to play. We have the bank regulators, the SEC for the securities market, of course, and the CFTC for the commodity derivatives market. So each one does its part, and I think what you're seeing right now is a coordinated effort to really examine the risk that exists in the crypto sector and to make sure that we're using all of the tools we have available.
So let me get specific about one thing, stablecoins. Because they've been a theme through this. And we've seen, as I say, state regulation here in New York as well as federal regulation. Where are you on the question of whether they're a security or not?
So I think not all stablecoins are the same. It's really important to look at each one and see how it's structured. So this is, of course, a facts and circumstances analysis, a technical legal analysis. So there are many stablecoins that are structured as payment stablecoins, which would fall under the bank regulators and payment regulation. There are some that are structured and that the SEC has alleged are securities. There are some that to me seem to be derivatives. And so that would fall under our jurisdiction as well as the SEC's.
Well, I wonder, are there some that are both as a practical matter? I mean, like Binance, it's called Binance Peg BUSD. I've seen people say that is both a derivative and a security at the same time. Is it possible to do both?
I think, yes, security-based swaps are securities and they are derivatives as well. But I think I can't speak about any particular token.
Okay, fair enough. But in general, there are things that can be both. That can.
Sure. There are security-based swaps, like I said.
How should we, those of us who are not involved the way you are, regard the question of where these things should be regulated between the SEC and the CFTC? I mean, what's the right way to look at that question?
Yeah, well, I think it just all comes down to the product analysis, like you just mentioned, right? So the SEC, of course, has jurisdiction over securities in the securities market, and that includes security-based swaps and other derivatives on securities. And there has been, through Dodd-Frank and other legislation, the delineation between the CFTC and the SEC, and indeed CBDC, there's a long history going back between the agencies all the way back to Chairman John Shad and Chairman Philip McBride Johnson, the Shad-Johnson Accord, where they determined where some of the delineations were between the two agencies. Security futures, another product where that took some time to hash out. So the agencies are used to working together. The industry is used to having to do that analysis to determine what's the SEC and what's the CFTC.
Okay. All right. The next thing I wanted to show you, and this goes directly in the All the Worlds of Stage file. Remember, BlackRock, Robbie Mitchnick, who did an XRP valuation model with Susan Athey back in, I believe, 2018, who's on Ripple's board of directors. Robbie Mitchnick left Ripple and went to BlackRock to head their digital assets. Watch this. This guy's Rob Goldstein from BlackRock.
And what's interesting,
plus they added some spooky music over the top of it because I believe they too believe all the world's a stage.
This year, 2022, which was a remarkable year in so many ways, and through so many lenses, including through the lens of just fixed income and equity returns, it was one of the worst years, depending upon how you count, in, let's say, 50 years. But interestingly, it was the year that we chose at BlackRock to actually start implementing our digital asset strategy, the strategy that we had written over the past couple of years and chose to sort of like put in a pile and say, you know, one day we will do this, but today is not the day, because we wanted to see certain things happen. And what's interesting is one of the...
Boy, that sounds creepy.
...things that we were carefully observing is where we are with regard to regulation. And when Ukraine-Russia happened, which obviously is a terrible tragedy, an incredible event for the world, but importantly, it also has a lot to do with digital assets in terms of it was an unprecedented sanctions regime.
And Stellar's building the Ukrainian CBDC.
And clearly the concept of understanding how to manage money, the SWIFT payment network, all of those items were being front of mind across the whole discussion. And what we observed is, as that was happening, it would have been a prime time for governments to choose to really lock down on digital assets.
Boy, I tell you what. There are no coincidences, folks. Watch this one right here.
The world will.
These were all given to me by Mike Jansen, who was one of the earliest listeners to my show, and he created the intro and the outro for my show.
Will be scuttled. We will no longer be the reserve currency of the world. Now, here again, think of the magnitude of this, and there really is here, if I could use the word, and I almost hesitate because it's so startling, but this is treason of the highest form that probably has ever taken place in the history of the world. America has enjoyed the position of being the reserve currency of the world as long as you and I can remember. And I'm not a young fellow, but it's been that way all of my life. Yet, what are you going to see take place? A complete change as we know it today. One of these 204 currencies will be chosen as the reserve currency of the world. And there are some things taking place in relation to this currency right now. I do not know what the currency is. I was not told that. I was merely told that there is going to be a global currency reset with all currencies, but only 204 have agreed to keep their currencies within 5% of each other. The dollar will not be used, and the reserve currency that they will choose out of this 204, whichever one they decide to choose, or maybe another one that they'll decide to choose, and these other countries balance with it. The currency that they do decide that will be the future reserve currency of the world will be backed by gold.
I think what's going to happen is you're going to have several of these, several stable coins that are created Hell, every country could have one, and those stable coins will have a gold backing. I believe that will happen, and those will be on those. A lot of those could be on the XRP's private ledger, and then they eventually bridge through XRP. That's kind of how I've always thought of this thing. Now, check this out from Monica Long. Speaking of, tokenization has always been a key feature of the XRP ledger, with over 5,400 plus issued tokens since inception. CBDCs will live on the new private ledgers that run parallel to XRP ledger, using XRP as a bridge to interoperate with other currencies. No more walled gardens. Sure does seem to fit like a glove, doesn't it? Now, we've got a big problem. This really did upset me this morning. George Soros has gone missing. Today, he was supposed to attend a conference on his recent work in African education and did not arrive. Military units have been called into the search. And I said, Gary Gensler's calendar may help in the search if he hasn't scrubbed the meetings. And then there was this XRP community. If you believe the guy with the island didn't commit suicide, the judge that dismissed the guards accused of falsifying records were dismissed by Annalisa Torres, Ripple case judge. Hope it's nothing. When I saw this, I said, well, that might be the scariest tweet about this case I've ever seen. Folks, I'll go this far. I will say this. If the judge in this case calls XRP itself a security, or XRP in the secondary market a security, I will begin questioning the legitimacy of the decision. And that's about as far as I'll go with that. Now, this right here, my friends, is karma. If you remember this guy right here and his partner run Multicoin Capital. These are the guys that both were bragging on TV about how they were shorting XRP back in 2018. Two of their limited partners were Andreessen Horowitz and Union Square Ventures. I've shown you the video. These guys literally were going out while they were getting the, like right after the Ethereum free pass, these guys were trying to tamp down, they were bragging about shorting XRP. And just by coincidence, the two venture capital firms that were involved in getting the Ethereum free pass and then slamming the door on XRP and the rest of crypto, they just happened to be backing these same guys that were running around bragging about shorting XRP. So now their hedge fund has lost 91.4% in 2022, and I don't feel sorry for them. Now here, this breaking MicroStrategy confirms its exposure to Silvergate Bank. And this is a real scenario. I think that you could see this scenario happen, folks. A very real scenario. Let's say, for instance, that MicroStrategy got sued by their shareholders. And in that lawsuit, their shareholders said, you invested all this money in Silvergate and in Bitcoin, and you had a fiduciary duty to us, the shareholder. You can't put our money in something where you don't even know who created it. That makes no sense. If that issue came up in a lawsuit against MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor would be forced to answer the question as to whether he knew who Satoshi was or not. I feel like a lot of these Bitcoin maxis that are higher level guys have always known. I'm not saying he did, but I'm saying I think a lot of them have always known who Satoshi is, which would be a major controversy in itself. But if he was in a lawsuit like that, and he did know, he would be in the ultimate catch-22, because he would either get creamed in a lawsuit if he did not know who Satoshi was, but if he admitted that he did know who it was, then that's a scandal in itself. And then this guy replies right over the target. I really think this highlights a key point. How can financially regulated organizations with fiduciary obligations invest in technology when the creator or creators are unknown? A critical part of due diligence, basic stuff. Exactly. And if you don't think that the United States government does not know what Joseph Grunfest, an ex-SEC commissioner, says right here, then you got another thing coming, folks. And you ought to buy my igloo in South Georgia, and I'm going to increase the price right in your face. Listen to this.
Looking at it carefully, there really is no such thing as a trustless system. The issue is whom do you trust for what purpose? Right? And let's go to, Bitcoin. Okay? Sure, you don't have to trust the United States government, but what you don't realize is you're trusting the Chinese government.
I just realized
Why do I say, wait a minute.
I just realized
when they invented Bitcoin, did anybody say, I tell you what, we're going to structure this at the end of the day in about 10 years.
But basically, this guy's calling out the Bitcoin thing. It doesn't make any sense, never has. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that dilemma could literally come up in a courtroom somewhere one day. And what are those Bitcoin people going to do? They're going to be shuffling around like saying, you need to seal this, seal it. That's what they're going to do. Thanks.